Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of Right Along with Craig Black up in Scotland. It's great to have you with us, Craig. I appreciate your time. While we're getting going, I always like to ask people to go back to as far back as they can remember, really, when design and creativity first played a role. And can you then lead us from those earlier days right through to education and then your first roles when you worked out within the industry?
Yes, certainly. So going way back, well, still now, I've got an affinity with football. That was my kind of first love, you could say. But from that led to a path in the creative. I was always kind of drawing football badges and type on the back of strips and football boots, colouring them in, and also playing the game as well. But I think it was the true fascination with type on the back of football strips that kind of got me going. And then from that, I was always drawn when I was younger, always drawn away, but most of the time outside, playing football, climbing trees, all that nonsense as you do as a kid. And later on in life, I think the kind of real moment I actually started to form a bit of an idea in my head was in high school. So when I was in high school, I actually played professional football as well. From my local team, which is Greenock Morton. So I signed my first professional deal with them, and I used to train in the morning and go to school in the afternoon to study art and design, because I always enjoyed art, and I was smart enough to know that you're going to be very lucky to make it as a professional footballer. So fortunately, doing that art and design at school, I ended up spending the next 5 years playing professional football, not doing any art and stuff in the background. And then I decided to leave football because I became disheartened with the game. There's a lot of politics in football and stuff. And no matter how hard I tried, how well I played, I just wasn't getting the opportunities, and it just destroyed my soul, basically. And I wanted to do something totally different. And I ended up, after I made the decision to leave football, which was quite a shock to a lot of people because the club made me a new offer, had other clubs making me offers, but just didn't fancy it. I just wanted a career change. And from that, I went to the pub and I actually bumped into my old art teacher from high school 5-6 years ago. And I explained to him what happening, and I says, I don't know what to do next. And his advice to me was, well, you were shit at football anyway, why don't you go study graphic design? And my reply was, what the fuck is graphic design? So before you know it, he's got me involved in a college course in Glasgow. And then the first day of getting into the graphic design course, I instantly fell in love with design. I honestly, it was the best thing ever. And then from that led to 3 years of studying graphic design, but then it fell into a love with typography and lettering. Going back to figuring out and understanding what the type on the back of football strips and the logos and all those kind of things in football boots played its part. And then from there, from graduating from Glasgow, and I moved to the bright lights of London, worked in an agency called Red Bee Media, which was a broadcast design agency. And they were essentially the in-house team to the BBC at the time. And it was all kind of motion-based work, and I had no idea how to do any motion. I came from a print-based background, so it was getting my foot in the door, but it was a total amazing learning curve, and it did lead to some amazing projects. I ended up doing something that I can't like shout about on my portfolio, but I ended up creating the logo typeface for the UEFA Europa League logo, which you'll see now. So I'd done that 2015, I think it was. And then from that, again, I spent 2.5 years there. Then I went 6 months at a company called Gregory Bonner Hale in London, who were a top design agency at the time. But at the same time, as soon as I graduated, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that was become an independent designer, specialising in typography and lettering. So in the background of working those full-time jobs, I was constantly building my portfolio, working on self-initiated work. So for about 2 or 3 years, no one knew who I was, but I was just practicing type and type and type over and over and over again. And then I think it was in 2015, I made the brave decision to go out on my own and strike it as an independence, run my own studio. absolutely no idea what I was doing. I had literally no money in the bank account. I think I had 1 month's rent the following month, and that was it, covered. And somehow I've managed to keep going for the past 7 years doing that, running my own studio off a wimp, really. But it was more of a desire and determination and focus to do that. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and it's led to this path now where I've transitioned from a designer to a visual artist now. It's just the evolution of my career. So all days back to football, really, back in the day, drawing and stuff.
It's incredible how much your whole life, it's not just your career, isn't it? Your whole life is just circulating around the sport. It's incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, just the chance of bumping into your old teacher and, having that encounter, which is so frank, and sort of then just sends you off in a completely different path. It's amazing, really, isn't it? Just sort of...
Definitely, like there's teachers have made a massive impact in my life. So that was my high school teacher in art and design, and that was a guy called Paul Murray. And before that, though, in primary school in P7, I don't know if there's people from America, I don't understand what I'm saying. I don't know the equivalent, but Mrs. Mackay, or Moira Mackay, that's what you call her now, Moira Mackay. She had a massive influence on me and encouraged me in being creative and drawing and stuff. And she's actually a good friend. I seen her yesterday, actually. That's pretty crazy. And I actually still call her Mrs. Mackay. I need to call her Moira, but it's so weird. But these teachers have played a massive part in my life and in guiding me and seeing something in me before I actually seen it myself, maybe. And gave me that encouragement, and I'm hugely grateful for them. And I think teachers, lecturers are kind of not as valued enough, that I think, and they are critical to every one of our careers, even for my lecturers in college as well. Like, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So all these people have been some sort of mentors along the way, and they do play an important part in my life specifically.
Yeah, they get quite a bad rap, don't they, teachers? We always just see them as a bit of the...
Yeah, you do. You do, but I think as long as you're not a bad student, don't get me wrong, there's a few times I was a bit of a nonsense child, but I grew out of that quickly. But yeah, they do make an impact, and I'm hugely grateful for them.
Yeah. So, well, I'm really interested. When I first got to, well, really first sort of started to pay attention to your work, Craig, was through the public speaking that you were doing probably a year or 18 months before the pandemic. I think it was it Offset, Barcelona, I think.
So yeah, my off Barcelona was a big one, and that was the biggest one I did in Europe at the time. Prior to that, I did one in Australia, which was my first international one. It literally was it 6 months before I did my very first talk was in Glasgow. And I remember it was it was called Gab, and it was run by a design agency called Jam Hot, based in Glasgow. And they gave me a 15-minute window just to chat about my career and what I was doing. And I properly crapped myself. I was like, oh, I can't do this. But I remember doing those 15 minutes, just chatting away, and the response I got was incredible. And it was very much, you definitely need to do this more. You need to share this story and stuff like that. And then that's what happened. That one thing led to another. And then I'm speaking at the biggest design and creative conferences in the world. And I've been doing that, well, before the pandemic, quite a lot of that now. And I've got stuff lined up for next year as well, which is quite exciting.
Was that a contrived idea to get yourself out there? Or was that first one just by friendship or coincidence, or just...
It was a bit of both. So Graham has become a good friend of me now, and at that point I was like 2 years into doing my own studio, and I realized that there is, from a business point of view, it's very good to do public speaking because it builds your brand profile and it gets yourself out there, kind of thing. So it was one of those, suck it up, Craig, let's go for it kind of thing. And I'm so glad it has, because it's led to so many opportunities, collaborations, but also amazing friendships and relationships that I've built along the years. And it honestly proves vital for me, for what I do now. Do you know what I mean? Getting to that level and that profile to be able to go to Australia and the USA and stuff like that to do talks is quite crazy. But you've got to put yourself out there to make these things happen.
Yeah, and also your work, more than most of us, is so visual, isn't it? It's a perfect way to sort of really see it and engage with it, firsthand. It's really important. If anybody's thinking about doing it, is there anything you'd advise?
I would,
from a confidence perspective.
In terms of public speaking, definitely start local. So I started a social enterprise here in my hometown called Creative Inverclyde, and it's all about how creativity can create social good. And part of that is I create like an evening of talks, but I use local creatives and give them a platform to share their story. And it could be in a room of between 20 to 100, 150 people. It depends on how many turn up, obviously. But going to local events and putting yourself at the local creative events as well. Education system, go to schools and universities as well. Because you may have 1 year, 2 years experience being in the game, maybe a recent graduate. Everybody's got a unique story. Everybody's got such a unique perspective in life, even though many people say to me, oh, I've got nothing to share, I've got nothing to talk about. Your upbringing, your childhood, all that stuff is so unique. Share it with the world and it will relate to someone. Like the amount of times that I've done a talk, whether it's local or international, and I've had countless people saying, connecting with my story, maybe something that, whether it's football or the way I've grown up, or whether it's been in Scotland or not in Scotland, is related to them and they've been inspired to go do their own thing based off my story. And that's such a powerful thing to hear. And I'm grateful that I'm able to do that and help others. So I do recommend doing it, because one, it also helps your confidence when you're doing presentations to clients and pitches and all those kind of stuff, because you're essentially doing public speaking when it comes to that, and it does really help, even in front of team members as well. A lot of agencies do like a Friday morning catch-up inspiration thing, and I remember when I first done it in Red B, and I was like hid away in the corner. I'm like, don't come near me, don't ask me. And then eventually I did it, and then I'm like, you build it up, you build up public speaking so much, it's such a scary thing, and see when you complete it, you go, it wasn't that bad after all. It really wasn't. And I stumble my words. I usually throw in a few swear words accidentally into that. But honestly, people don't want you, people are there to hear your story and listen to what you say. So just go for it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's one of those, it's like when you're a kid and you've got to stand on a stage in front of your classmates, and you're so nervous that you could like literally throw up, but then afterwards, you're buzzing, you know what I mean? You sort of like, you want to do it again. And I know. That's an incredible thing. But I think it's also, like, I think you touched on it then, and it's really important for people just to talk honestly, like be themselves. And it sounds such an easy thing to say, but I think we have a tendency in design and creative worlds to maybe complicate things and use jargon and fancy words for everything. When really we just, personally, I just want to hear people's stories. That's why I do this. I just find it fascinating and inspiring to hear that you've just come from, you come from a normal background from Scotland. You're in a completely different career, and your heart was set on that for a short period, and then through adversity, you've now.
I'll tell you. So see that? No, I'm glad you said that, because I remember going to a design festival years ago, big international one, and I was going to see people who were like way ahead of me in the game, years of experience, doing amazing projects, and I was so interested to hear the story of how they graduated, or even their childhood to graduation to the next steps, like just like kind of building blocks. I was so excited to hear this certain creative story. Creatives, there's quite a few of them, and when I went to these talks, actually, they were so disappointing. It was very much portfolio based. This is what I've done here. This is what we've done here. This is what I've done here. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, we can go to your website. We can see that. I want to know you. I want to know your story. So I remember this was in 2015, was it? 2016. And I promised myself an internal promise saying, if I ever do public speaking, or when I get to that point, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to give a story about me and how you go from graduation to the first job, to the next step, to the next step, how you get to those elements, because that's the things that I wanted to hear. And I kind of kept that internal promise, and I never shared that with anyone. And then when I started doing the talks, the relatability to everyone and how they took that encouragement and inspiration, like, because like you said, I'm from like just a normal bloke going and just in the middle of Scotland, do you know what I mean? And I'm getting to work with international brands and clients across the world. And it's amazing that to say that, because it's true, and it's a lot of hard work that's made it happen, but it's stepping stones. It's building, it's little building blocks. It's not you just go from graduation and then I'm working with Nike and I'm working with this big massive brand. There's stepping stones to that, and I've always promised myself to share that. And I think that's why my story does come across pretty well.
Yeah, and that relatability thing is essential, isn't it? Because most of us are from an average background, normal background, maybe underprivileged, maybe don't have access to creative stuff.
Yeah.
So to hear other people who've done it and faced those adversities and been successful, or however you deem success, that is inspiration. That's what I want to get out of these things. I think that's really important for us to pass that on, that knowledge and insight. We've go through certain failures to hopefully to help others. But if we share that stuff, that's important, isn't it? I'm really interested. I've asked quite a few people, because recently I spoke to a number of freelancers or people that run their own business. I'm really interested to know what that is like when you go from working for somebody else, getting a wage, all that, the comforts that come with that, to then going, I really want to do it myself. I want to do it my own way. But the actual, the strength or the courage you need, bravery, whatever you want to call it, to then start on your own. What was that like for you? Was that just waking up on that morning and going, oh shit, we need to make money, we need to find clients, we need to do work? All those real world problems that we have when you work for yourself. What was that experience like for you?
Absolutely. So in when did I start? Was it 2015, 2016? I officially started. I can't remember exactly year. I should, but I can't remember. It was something that I've been working with since once I graduated. I knew I wanted to do this no matter what. And I did think to myself 5 years after graduation. But what was happening was I was working in agencies, and in the honesty, I wasn't getting the fulfillment that I thought I was going to get. The fulfillment was coming in my self-initiated work and those kind of projects as well. And that was really exciting me. I couldn't wait to get home, basically, to do this work. And I thought to myself, and I was seeing people out there who are doing type and lettering, and I was like, how did they do it? How did they get to that point? And it was a case of quantity, right? Because I didn't have the quality at the beginning, but I had to practice and practice and practice. Now, from that jump, it was born out of frustration and then burnout, actually, because I started to, after 2.5 years of working in agencies, I started to pick up a few clients and stuff, and there was more based up here in Scotland, and I was based in London at the time. And it really was, it was a branding and interior and exterior mural design for a Mexican restaurant. And I was flying up for 6 weekends in a row because I couldn't take a huge holiday to do it. And I was hand painting a mural, like 10, 15 meters long, on windows, on the walls, and all that kind of stuff. And it was crazy because I was working in the evenings 4 or 5 hours a night doing it, and then working a full-time job 8 hours a day. And it led to burnout. After that project, my body just went, and it made me reevaluate what I wanted to do with my life. And I wanted independence. I wanted more control over my life. I didn't enjoy the constraints I was under. And I thought the only way that I can make this work, the way that I want to go, is to go all in and try to make something of my own. So then that's like I said before, like I literally only had 1 month's rent in my bank account. And I don't recommend this for anyone, actually. Make sure you've got enough candy in the bank at least 3 months, 4 months or longer. But the reason that I did that was sheer determination, sheer trusting my gut as well. Like my gut was telling me go for it. Everyone else, all the noise was saying don't do it. All the paperwork, everything you can read online, everything, all the advice could say, oh, make sure you get another 5 years experience, make sure you got all this, or 10 years experience before you go out on your own. And I just went, fuck that. I trust myself. I'm going to go for it. And I did. And in the first couple of weeks, I did get I got done freelance work. So I went into a few agencies and did some other work just to get some candy, some money in the door to keep me going for a few months. And that was the last freelance job I ever did, was 2 or 3 weeks work. And then from there, I ended up getting type projects. Everything that I got coming into studio was type or lettering based work. And I just made it happen. And I dedicated a lot of time and effort to making that happen. And I mean, it wasn't 8 hours a day, you're talking 12 hours a day. And I don't recommend that, but sometimes you need to do that to get things up and running. And that was just from my own belief, and that's what I had to do. And it's not the same for everyone, but at the very beginning, I was going all out. And after 6 months in London, and I think that was part of it as well, because I was working so much in London. And I basically had this it was a cabin studio, but essentially it was my bedroom as well. So I stayed in this cabin in North London outside my old man's house and in this garden. And I was literally there 24 hours a day, which is just crazy. And I met my wife around that time, and she was back here, and I missed home. I missed Scotland. I missed the fresh air. I missed my pals, missed everything. And after 6 months, I just thought, I've packed my bags and gone home. I'm not happy here. And then when I came home, I just basically kind of started the business, like kept going with the business kind of thing. But I managed my time better. I started to focus on what I wanted to do more, curating my portfolio better, making sure I'm getting great content along the way. And then I was just picking up clients here and there. And it literally has been building blocks ever since.
Brilliant.
Starting local, basically like local barbers, bloody butchers, hairdressers, doing logos here and there. Like everyone's done logos for 50 quid. I'm not gonna lie, I was one of them. Do you know what I mean? Just to get it for the portfolio, get it in there. But then obviously over time you need to kind of build it up, you know, believe in your professionalism and all this stuff. And there's no way I could get away with charging that now. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't do anything for me. But those are the stepping stones that got me to this point. And it's, you know what, and to be brutally honest, I wouldn't change it for the world. All those trials and tribulations I went through, those challenges that were so hard physically and mentally, running a business, figuring out how to run a business. Like, don't get me wrong, I asked a loads. I'm not shy in asking for help. I would ask people who are much more experienced than me, going, how did you do this specifically? How did these pinpoints? How did you do this? How did you invoice that? What did you charge this client? How did you do this? I'm not afraid of asking for help, and I'm still to this day always asking for help. And I think that's a very honest thing to say, because a lot of people go out there thinking, oh, I run my own studio, I don't need to ask for help. I'm hands up all the time going, what do you think of this? Why can I do this? How can I push myself a little bit better? And that's a good thing for me, because that means I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly building myself, I'm constantly improving. And that's an important thing to take on board as well, along the way.
Yeah, I think all of those things are really important. Surrounding yourself with people that can help and being honest enough and open enough to sort of reach out to people is really important, because you're not designed to know everything. You know what I mean? When it comes to accounts or HMRC, all the stuff that nobody sees, you know, you need good people to help, or like-minded people that'll help you out, won't they? You touched upon burnout then. This is something that I've recently had myself for the first time in my career. And I didn't know what it was. I was really confused about, you know, I was so lethargic, I couldn't even get up off the sofa. Do you know what I mean? It was just a mind, it just destroyed my head. You know, I just didn't know what was going on at all.
It's brutal.
Yeah, what did that look like for you in terms of, you know,
So the last time I had burnout was in proper like real serious burnout was a moment in 2015 when I decided to move back to Scotland, because it was an accumulation of working a full-time job, working long hours, trying to start my own business, not taking care of myself, not getting adequate sleep, stress. It was just horrific. And then what happened was, once I finished that project, the adrenaline zapped and I felt like jelly, and I was sick. I was in bed. I was off work for 2 weeks at that point, and it made me reevaluate what was important in life. I was focused on the work rather than the quality of life I have. In fact, I had an amazing family around me, an amazing support base, and my wife, Ali, has been a catalyst of that, really. Like, her background is in mental health, and she's a mental health nurse. And at that point, she saw that happening, and she's like, no, this can't go on, kind of thing. So she planted the seed, like, it's time for you to come home, kind of thing. And I kind of knew deep down, but I was so drawn to London because I was like, the clients are there, that's where the projects are, that's all that stuff. And it really is, like, it's not, it's everywhere. It's everywhere we go. It's in your local towns, it's in your cities close by, it's international. It's not just in one place. but I was so fixated on London that it blinded my outlook kind of thing. So having her there was brilliant, and she pulled me out of that. And from that moment, actually, she set kind of rules for me. Basically, no working later past 5:30 at night. So she finished work at she gets in the door at 5:30 when she used to work at 5:30. And when she came in, it was game over for me. I didn't do any work later. It was literally, that was the rule. And it hugely benefited my career because of that. And the reason for that is because between 10 and 5:30 or whenever I was working that time frame, I was so productive and so focused on the task in hand, because I knew at 5:30 when she's coming in the door, it's game over. I'm not working late anymore. And you start to kind of curate your life around that, and you start to focus on what's the important things in your business and what to push that forward. So things like wasting time on scrolling on Instagram and Twitter and just looking at nonsense, like cutting that out early doors and actually focus on the project in hand, what you need to get done, writing a to-do list and all those things. So all those kind of disciplines has majorly helped my, I don't want to say my mental health. It has actually, because I will wake up every day knowing exactly what I need to get done, my tasks I need to get done, what's the important things to do. And then at the end of the day, if I can look back and go, well done, you've done that, you've ticked off, rather than lingering on, oh, I need to do this tomorrow, I need to do that, it's building. But knowing also at the same time when to take a step back, when to take a break. So for instance, I took a holiday last week to Portugal, took my family, my wife and my young daughter away to Portugal. And that was after the back of 6 weeks of just flat out working Monday to Friday. I don't work weekends. There's very, very rarely that I've ever worked a weekend. And I've maybe worked once in the past 3 years, purely because I've disciplined myself. And I tell clients that as well. I'm not working a weekend. I spend it with my family and my friends. I say, I need that. And because of that discipline, when I get in on a Monday, I am refreshed, I'm recharged, I'm ready to go. So I took that holiday last week, and it was a perfect time because I was flat out and I had like 3-4 projects. I wrapped them all up and I'm like, reset button, I need to go sit and just digest, turn off, plug away from the matrix and taking that time off. So fortunately, because I'm in a position of being an independent, I can decide when to take a break. And it doesn't have to be a 7-day holiday. It could be literally, I'm taking an afternoon off, I'm taking the morning off. And now that I have a daughter as well, Olivia is now 1. So my morning times from 6 till 10, I'm with her. That's it. And I tell clients, I'm not going to start working until near 10:30 or 11 when I'm in the studio. Says I'm with my daughter and that's it. And see, because of that honesty as well and transparency, they all relate and they all understand that. But see, when I'm in from 11:30 to 5 o'clock or whatever, when I'm in the studio here, I am super focused. I'm super on the ball doing what I need to be done. But it's setting yourself discipline is the key thing in helping with mental health. For me, that's what's helped is setting those boundaries.
Yeah, I think we all need an ally by the sounds of it. That's an incredible support network. Do you find you have to really work at that? Do you have to keep on perfecting and honing that?
Oh, absolutely. You need to constantly remind yourself and be disciplined as well. Like there's days you just go, oh, I can't be asked, or you just, I don't let, procrastination is something that I don't tolerate personally. I do not tolerate procrastination. If I've got something that needs to get done, I will attack it. Even if I can't be bothered or I don't want to do it, I will go for it no matter what, because procrastination is the enemy for me. And that is what sets in stress and anxiety for me personally. So that is something that that for early burnout is cutting that out from my life, because that self-discipline changes and evolves as you get older and businessman, you know more about business and your life, and you have a family and stuff like that as well. I knew early on from what was important in life and my family and my friends, and come way before work. Do you know what I mean? But what's great about what I do now is I can combine the two. So I involve my family and friends into what I do. I share experiences with them, and that is such a joyful and an amazing feeling to be able to do that as well. So they're part of my journey as well. So it's all an accumulation of stuff. It's not one or the other. There is a combination in there, and it's just understanding and knowing your boundaries yourself. And you need to have a self-reflection. you need to look internally and figure out what is it I enjoy, what do I love doing, what do I want to spend more time doing, and then for me it was family and friends.
There are also things like when you've got young children, or I have as well. Those things will never return. You know, they'll only be that age for once. You know, and to maximise that. So if you can afford yourself the luxury of having a bit of extra time off or in the mornings with her, you know, it's really, really important. And it's far more important.
See, just on that note about the little one, like, so I met my wife Ali 7 years ago, and our plan is right now is to have a family, right, and to run my own studio. The biggest reason, my why factor, why I wanted to run my own studio, was because I want to be able to take my daughter to school without having to rush back to some boss and telling them I'm running late or I need to take my kids to school. I decide that. I want to decide that I had to take that time with my daughter anytime. If she wants to go do something, I'll be there in a heartbeat. That's for me. That's my wife. That's why I do what I do every single day. It's for her and for my wife, and that's been something that's been building for 7 years. Building this lifestyle, this environment around me. It's been brutal hard work to get there, and it's still hard work now. But it's for them, and I think when you find out what your why is, and that's in a cliche Simon Sinek kind of thing, and that's what his find your why. But that is what it is, and that's what drives me every single day. So that's what builds my self-discipline and my focus and stuff, is having that lifestyle for them.
Yeah, no, that's something very similar to my story. And 8 years later, it's extremely rewarding being able to do that school walk.
Yeah,
when it's chucking it down, it's not quite as rewarding, but
I know.
It's just knowing that you've set. For me, I find that helps me with burnout and mental health, because it just detaches you from the thing that's causing it. It puts you in a happy place. It's really, really rewarding. So fair play to you. Moving on to the specifics of the work, I remember seeing a while ago the typography you did for Rangers. Obviously now knowing your football connection and love, that must have been, and obviously being a supporter of the club as well. How did that come about? And was that just a
that was literally the dream project for Type. That was it. So growing up, massive Rangers fan. My big brother, my dad, everybody, family, friends, Rangers fan. So I used to go to Ibrox as a kid, and the dream was to play for Rangers. Every young boy who plays football dreams of being a professional footballer. Unfortunately, I wasn't good enough. But I always remember as a young lad, I said to my older brother, I said, one day I'm going to be on that pitch. But I didn't realise, I thought I was going to be a player, but really it was through Type. And I believe that everything happens for a reason. So that came about, when was it? A couple of years ago. So I got an email from Seesaw Creative based in Kilmarnock, who did the actual branding aspect of it. Yeah. And they connected, it was Big Greg, who works, he's one of the senior designers there, who's been following my work on LinkedIn. And he reached out to me saying, huge fan of your work, Craig. We've got this Type project for a football club. Would you be interested? I said, yeah, let's come in for a meeting. So I went down to Kilmarnock, and where their studio's based, and I don't know anyone there. Not in my wildest dreams did I think it was Rangers. I'll be brutally honest. Didn't even cross my mind. I didn't have any idea. So I walk into this room. I still don't know anyone. There's 4 or 5 of them, and I see on the screen, and it says Rangers Football Club. And my instant reaction is, fuck off. Is it Rangers? Is this Rangers? And they all kind of stand and look at me going, yeah, is that okay? And I says, of course it's okay. I says, I'm a massive Blues, I'm a massive Rangers fan. And everybody just erupted in laughter, and it totally broke the ice for me. And it was from that moment, it set the relationship with the agency as well. So before you know it, I'm head first into this project. And the thing is about this project was I knew exactly what needed to be done. And it was intrinsic with me. It was because I grew up with the club, I knew everything about what had to be done, what made, basically it was a kind of evolution of the brand, right? It needed to connect with the past, but also the future, and a digital world and how it translates and all those kind of things, but also keeping in the heritage of the club. And I just knew exactly what I had to do. I must have been drawing Rangers stuff when I was younger. It must have been a moment for me. So I remember doing my first presentation in front of the Rangers marketing team. I was in Ibrox as well, going down the stadium tour and all those kind of things. It was unbelievable. I was cheesing inside, and it was quite a moment because I'm trying to be professional. I'm going, fuck, this is amazing. And but I did this presentation. It was part of a bigger brand presentation actually, but it came to the type element, and I stood up and I said, listen, I've only done one concept here, and this is all you need to do. And I went into vast detail of why there's a little kicks on the R, why it resembles to the bluebells, why the letter A is reflecting to letter forms that are on the stadium. There's a huge blue gates at Ibrox as well, and the typography from that has played a part in the type that I'm doing now. So I went into huge detail everything that I've done, because I've done a huge amount of research, everything that I've done in doing this. And from that first presentation, at the end of the conversation, the top marketing manager guy says, he just started clapping, and he says, listen, like, that type embodies the club. That is Rangers Football Club. It represents everything that we're wanting right now, and you've done a marvellous job in basically your first goal kind of thing.
Wow.
And I was just, at first I was just trying to keep it inside. My heart was just going boom, 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 boom. Because you don't know, like, at that point, do I try to keep cool and no responses? And I didn't expect any kind of response like that. So wonderful feedback right from the get-go. Only slight minor changes that had to be done. And then it was a few weeks later, it was in front of a bigger board, Rangers board kind of thing, doing the second presentation. Again, went into vast detail what I did. And in the second meeting, at the end of it, they turned around and said, listen, we absolutely love this type. There's nothing I want to change. I'm signing it off right here and then.
Wow.
And I'm sitting in this boardroom, and they all just look at me, and I just kind of go, yes. I just start celebrating. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. So everybody starts laughing. And but at that, so this whole process, this whole journey, that whole project was so emotional for me, because it meant so much to me, but also meant so much to all the supporters across the world as well. So I had a huge weight on my shoulders, and I probably I put that on myself, because no, there was huge pressures, because with football rebrands, it is a ruthless business. Like, if fans don't like it within the first 5 minutes, it's game over, because it can be ruthless, like I says. And there's been major rebrands you've seen over the years that have went down the pan. So being a Rangers fan, knowing the responsibility I had, a world-class brand I had to deliver. So after that meeting, I walked outside, and I spoke to the guys at the agency, and I got in the car, and I was overwhelmed with emotion. I mean, I looked at the stadium and I burst into tears, and like saying, I can't believe I've done this. That's when it really hit home that I've created the typeface for Rangers, which is, and I've not told anyone about this project. I couldn't, it's all confidential. So you imagine me trying to keep that from my dad and my brother. It's just unreal. Yeah. And so then, so it was like 4 months later, because the pandemic kicked in and delayed and it delayed and delayed. And I was desperate to tell people. I mean, I'm desperate, but also scared at the same time, because the reaction, you don't know how people are going to respond, because the old logo, the old crest, has been there for 60 odd years. People have got tattoos of it. Do you know what I mean? So they're going to have got an upgraded tattoo. So, but I remember there wasn't a set date of when it was launched. Say it was in, I can't remember exactly. Say they were going to launch it in March, but I didn't know specifically that day. I got a phone call from Greg at the design agency saying, Craig, they're launching it right now. Go on Twitter and see this. And I was in the living room with my wife Ali at the time, and there was this video launch of the type. I've not seen the video, and it was all the type in it. And it was such a powerful and inspiring video, because it had John Gregg, who's a Rangers legend, and it was his voiceover, and he talked on it. And again, me being emotional, my legs went like jelly, but when I fell to the ground, I burst into tears, and it was tears of joy and happiness. And I'm actually getting emotional now thinking about it, because it was such a powerful thing, a powerful video. And then the response online for the fans was incredible. I'm like, don't get wrong, I wasn't going to please everybody. There's that very, very small amount of Rangers fans that didn't like it or don't like it or now have come across it, but 99% of them love it. And that was just such an emotional journey, and it's such a powerful thing that I've built up so much. And I mean, I gave my heart and soul to this project, as you can imagine. Like, I gave everything to it, every fine details. But then the pandemic happened, and I couldn't get to Ibrox to see it all, because the type was all over the stadium. It was everywhere. But I think one of the most pivotal moments for me goes back to where earlier I said my conversation was what inspired me to get into creativity, and it was the typography in the back of football shirts. Now, I used to go to Ibrox and see the type on the back of tops, and now, right to this moment, I seen the very first time that my type was on the back of a Rangers shirt. Blew me away.
You think was there a moment when the board, they signed it off that day? Is that there's something there that validated you as a creative, and because you worked so hard to set up the business to do the 50 quid logos, to then be stood in front of like your, you know, the idols, or, you know, in the stadium, you know, where you've grown up around and you've been there with your family.
Hey, I'm actually getting quite emotional now thinking about it, because
Yeah, just make you go.
No, it's true though. It is. See, everything you said is absolutely true. So, I'm kind of choked up. Didn't expect this on a Friday morning. Yes, those 7 years of working so hard and literally having no money and scraping together, fighting tooth and nail for something that you believe in. Sorry, mate.
It's good to let it out.
Basically, that was a moment. That was a moment for me. I can't believe this. I'm crying, almost crying on that.
Fair play, mate.
So, but no, it was 7 years of hard, and it meant everything to me. So then, from that moment though, that was when you've hit something that you've dreamed about and you've fought tooth and nail for, there's nothing that can eclipse that. So even people said, "Oh, what have you got Barcelona or you got Real Madrid?" Be amazing, great project, but it wouldn't pull on the heartstrings. Yeah. Not that Rangers did for me. So from that moment, it was a curtain call for me when it came to typography and lettering. It really did. I've ever since that project, I've had so many amazing type projects. I've had lots of inquiries and lots of stuff. But I had to, for that moment, I felt like there's nothing going to beat that for me, and I want to evolve, I want to change, and that's what's led to me now being a visual artist. Yeah. So I peaked at doing Rangers, and I never thought at that point in my career that I would have peaked. But this is a personal peak for me. It's not for anyone else in the type world or anything like that. It's just that self-reflection. Like, there's nothing that I ever. So I was getting type projects now, and sometimes I get inquiries now here and then, and my enthusiasm and passion isn't there anymore because it will never eclipse that. And that's just, I just can't get over that, basically. Yeah. So I needed to find a new output and come back to those earlier childhood memories of building stuff using paint and stuff like that. That is something I've been building for years and years and years in the background as well as my type. And now I wanted to evolve, I wanted to change. And now that I have a family, now I've got the studio, I want to pivot in a new direction. And that direction has led to me being a visual artist. And it was because of the Rangers project. Yeah. It was because.
During the summer, you released the fusion work, didn't you, with the boots and the balls? Yeah. For the European Championships. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've seen a lot of what you've been doing recently. We discussed at the start of this about your live performances, so to speak. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? So that was the catalyst, the Rangers job was the catalyst for that sort of type of work, or was that something?
I would say it was the catalyst to pivot and reevaluate. It was obviously, you know, how emotional it meant to me and how much the project meant to me, and it made me really reflect on what next, what is it I want to do, and you could see throughout the years I was already building acrylic fusion stuff, and it did lead to the football boots and the UEFA. So talking about the art practice now and the visual art stuff. So in January I got this studio. Partly because my wife kicked me out of the house because I was getting paint everywhere, and my daughter was born, and so I had to get fined somewhere, and I found this amazing studio space here, and that was the point going, right, if you're going to do this, Craig, it's now, this is the moment. And at that point I didn't have any clients in the art world kind of thing. I still had my type stuff going on, but really I had nothing in the art world. And then I had the Fusion Series footballs, which you can see them lined up here on the shelf. So that was a self-initiated project from January to June time when when the UEFA Euros kicked off.
Yep.
And basically I wanted to combine acrylic fusion with a football representing teams at the Euros. And funny enough, after about 3 months of making it, I made a Scotland and Netherlands ball. I pitched the concept to UEFA. UEFA said to me, we love it. However, we've spent all our marketing budget. We've done it all 3 years ago. Tournaments in 3 months' time. It's not going to work, unfortunately. I was like, fine. And then I pitched it to other brands who were associated with the Euros, and I got the exact same feedback. We love it. However, we've spent a marketing budget. So that was an actual top moment, a special moment for me, because it could have went two ways. As one, I could have kept hold of the project and thought maybe another project, another tournament down the line or whatever, or do I believe in myself and go, you know what, I'm going to push for this and release this self-initiated project and then create 9 balls and make amazing content for it and see where it leads to. And I'm so glad I did, because I released this project and it's been a catalyst for my art career, to be brutally honest, was the Fusion Series footballs. And funny enough, as soon as I released it, UEFA get back in touch saying, you know what, this is special. We need you on board. Can you do this TV promo for us? And within 5 days, I was in London painting live balls for the Italy and Belgium game. And I was just going, unbelievable. But in terms of the live performance thing, that in that studio was the moment for me, actually, because there was in this amazing TV studio in London, right? And there was like a production team of like 10 or 15, and I'm live painting on these balls. And the crowd, they were going nuts. Like, they were saying, this is amazing. Like, they were looking at, there was a big TV, like basically live playing where I'm pouring, but they're also looking at the ball, looking at the TV going, is this real? It looks 3D, but it's real. And the energy from them was so powerful for me. And then I thought to myself after that moment going, I need to take this live. I need to do this more. And then from that, other projects started to happen with acrylic fusion stuff. And I had a meeting with an agency called the Midnight Club in London, who are an amazing experiential design agency. And they seen, basically my commercial director, Josh, connected us two together. And the Midnight Club are like, we want to meet Craig. Basically, I went down to London, meet them, had this, they presented to me, basically saying, we want to collaborate with you. We've seen all the fusion footballs. What do you want to do? And I says, well, I want to get in, create like a live experience. I want to create 7 footballs and then do a big massive ball and live paint it in front of people. I think it would be unique. Well, it is unique. No one's ever done it, especially this time of the end, like the pandemic. We're getting back to normal. No one's done an event yet. Like, I want to do this right now, and I think people will love it. And within that meeting, in 4 weeks, I had my first solo exhibition live performance show in London called the 7 Sins, and it was a sold out event. The passion, the energy from the crowd when I was painting these balls was unreal. I mean, people were going nuts. I mean, nuts. It was like a gig, and I was like a rock star. It was it's unbelievable. But what was happening was people were taking the amount of content that was getting used that night, the amount of people putting it online and taking selfies with the balls. There was a DJ playing, there was music all going on. It was what an experience. And from that, it has exploded for me. So I recently done one with COP26. I've got live performances lined up in London next year. I've got events in the US, from Nashville, New York, potentially LA, potentially Dubai, potentially Australia next year. And I'm like, fucking hell, this is awesome. But it all derives back to something that you believe in. If your gut is, believe in your gut no matter what. Do you know what I mean? Like, against all the odds, I always trust in my gut. And that is what's led to these moments, kind of thing.
Wow. That's it's incredible. And it all comes from Rangers. You know, it's never not played a part in your life. So it's an incredible story, Craig. I could talk to you for hours, mate, but I'm conscious of keeping you from doing natural work. So I think it'd be good to leave it there. But I really, really appreciate your time, and it's been.
Thanks for having me. And I didn't expect to get all emotional this morning, but it happened. But hopefully it does show you how much powerful creativity can be as well. Yeah. It can play emotionally, and you imagine that how much it meant to me and how much it means to other people as well. So
it was amazing.
thank you so much.
incredibly inspiring, and I've got a few ideas for something to do with you in future. So
Brilliant.
I'll keep in touch. But have a great rest of the day. All the best to your family and have a good weekend, mate.
You too, mate. I'll speak to you later on. Thanks
Thank
again.
you. Take care.